listening to Lower Dorks, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. My name is Aaron, and the gentleman joining me this evening is Stavros, as he does every evening. He's a bit of a stalker. Tell me, Stavros, what have you poured into our cups tonight?
Well, it's more about what you've poured into our cups. And this week, I'm thankful that you've selected a White Russian. I have used Tito's vodka and Bailey's Irish cream and some regular milk because I'm a pleb. But I have to say, I've always been a fan of White Russians. It is both tasty and delicious, and I'm glad you have selected it over some of our earlier picks.
Without a coffee liqueur, it's not really a White Russian. But whatever gets you through the day.
It's close enough.
Yeah, well, as long as we're a little tipsy when we move on to our topic for this evening. Because tonight, we're watching episode 1 of season 2, Strange Energies. It's written by Mike McMahon and directed by Jason Zurek.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about these guys? I haven't heard, I know McMahon, obviously, but Jason Zurek, what has he done?
Oh, good. For a minute there, I thought you were going to say you didn't know who Mike McMahon
I almost said that, and then I knew better.
I think we were going to have to get you to a doctor. So, yes, interesting thing. Mike McMahon also wrote the first and last episodes of the last season, as I recall. No doubt wanting to start the season off on a good foot. Not that every episode of last season wasn't spectacular. The director, interestingly, I don't know his history too much. I know he's done a lot of work for Cartoon Network. He wrote a lot of the later series of Ben 10. He's done a lot of stuff for them, as I mentioned. The main thing I remember him from is he did do a couple of episodes for the Venture Brothers. Specifically, the one I remember most is Sphinx Rising, which was a absolutely absurd episode. Many people may remember him from the animated Tron TV series, Tron Uprising.
Oh.
However, he's had a long history since then.
So he's so it sounds like he's a bit of a animated, director specialist, basically. So it's not that surprising that he's done this show.
His main role, I think, has mainly been storyboard artisting, but he has done quite a bit of directing. I think the DuckTales revival he was directing for quite a while. But yeah, I would imagine the jump from storyboarding to directing can't be that far of a leap.
Coming from two people who know nothing about how to produce animated shows.
Yeah, the closest I got was flip books in the corner of my math.
Hey, you know what? That counts for something.
Not according to my mother or the school board, who was very upset with
That's really sad. I'm really sad now. But what would make me happier is talking about what the plot of this episode is. How does that sound?
I don't recall. Did this episode have a plot?
Well, you know what? I'm here to remind you. I came up with this after the fact earlier today, and maybe you could tell me how accurate my synopsis is. So why don't I just get into it, and you can tell me of any major points that I've missed. So, yes, this episode. While Commander Ransom deals with the pressures of being cut out of the command circle by accidentally taking up space god powers and trying to awkwardly eat the Cerritos, Tendy's fear of losing her friendship with Rutherford after he gains a love for pears reaches extreme levels.
Pretty accurate. Although I don't think it was the love for pears that finally broke Tendy. I feel like it was just the general change in demeanor and preferences that started to give her concern.
Yes. Although I felt like pears was the most obvious and the most comedic.
Yes, so I kind of wonder if that isn't a callback to some fantastic deleted scenes from Doctor Who, where the Doctor explains about how much he hates pears, and he's afraid that in his human persona, he will start eating pears, and doesn't want to wake up to that taste in his mouth.
Well, if anyone's listening, you can leave a comment and see if that's where if that reference is coming from Doctor Who, and that'd be interesting to hear. But let's talk more about this episode then. What were your highlights from this episode? I know I have a few things I want to talk about, but what grabbed your attention?
So the cold open, and it was the cold open, unlike the last time I mentioned a cold open, and incorrectly identified it as a stinger because we were too far into the episode and I was too far into my cup to realize I was talking nonsense.
Well, these things happen.
The cold open is fantastic on so many levels. I love the fact that Mariner is still using the holodeck for therapy.
Yes.
I'm really intrigued to see how long it took people to pick up on the fact that Mariner was on a holodeck. For me, it was the moment she started ranting about her mother while in a torture chamber.
Yes.
Like, I feel like that would not be my topic of interest in that scenario.
Probably not.
But yeah, that whole opening scene is fantastic. I about died. The Boimler being tortured.
Yeah, and the best part is she adjusted his holodeck image to be in the First Contact or the Titan uniforms just to like get that extra level of detail in.
Yes,
hard to ignore
indeed.
that. Pretty good.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder. I feel like the Cardassian torturer in that scene. I feel like her appearance and demeanor is meant to be a reference to something, but I'll be damned if I cannot place it. You know, it's just, I know it means something, but I don't know what it is. Pretty soon I'll be building mashed potato facades of Cardassian torture. This means something.
I feel like she looks strongly, like there are some female Cardassian officers, I want to say in Next Gen, but maybe DS9. I feel like the artist just had her picture up and they just, made that character based on her maybe, but I don't know, maybe it is a specific reference for something. I'm not sure.
It could be. It's just I feel like something's there.
Yeah. But of course we talked about this when we looked at the trailers, but I mean the number of lights, like they keep showing me lights. That's, obviously the chain of command reference there.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
I do want to comment on something though. Her outfit that you were so focused on.
I was focused on it. It seemed out of place.
You were wrong. Didn't mean anything. Perfectly reasonable for the scenario.
I'll take back, if I said anything bad about that outfit, I take it back. And you know why? Because they put the Starfleet Delta everywhere in that outfit. Like it's on her little wrist cuffs. It's on the trainer shoes. It's everywhere, and it's great. I take back anything I ever said that was bad about that outfit. You
know what? If that's all it takes to get you to be on board with something, I've got a bunch of products you can look at.
Oh, excellent. I can't wait.
I got some land out in Nevada. Former nuclear test site, but Delta right in the ground, baby.
Ooh. I'll buy it.
But anyways, the best part of that scene, obviously, is as she makes her escape. And what ship is she flying in, Stavros?
Yes, that's the Miranda-class USS Macduff, which we pointed out in the trailers. But again, I mean, it's like why it's got to just be a Wrath of Khan reference or something. Like they just love the Miranda-class. They wanted to shove it in there somewhere. They made the model already, and they're just like, you know what, we can use it in Mariner's escape sequence.
Yeah, and I think you may be right about that. I think I had pointed out previously that Macduff was the fake officer in a previous TNG episode.
Yes.
I don't think that's a reference they were going for, though.
You don't think so? It's a fake ship because it's in her holodeck fantasy.
Yeah, I get that, but I think it may just be a Shakespearean callback. I don't recall who Macduff was. But you know what? It's a Miranda class, which itself is a Shakespearean reference. Yes. As you mentioned, Wrath of Khan, very much references Shakespeare all throughout.
Yes.
So I may have to eat that one. There may be no reference there.
But you're right. They show. I mean, speaking of ships, they show all of those ships that are like clumped up in the Cardassian like area. And I feel like I just said they made the model and they wanted to use it. They're probably like, wow, we made like the Maquis ship model and the Cardassian ship model. You know what? We're just gonna shove them all in this scene as a little Easter egg, and then everything will be cool.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like you got a Bajoran fighter, Jem'Hadar attack ship. Tons of Danube? I don't know how to pronounce that.
One of those. The runabouts.
Yeah, something like that. The weird thing was it looked like there were Delta flyers there.
Really?
Yeah, did like Starfleet Command just start mass producing those when Voyager got back? Because I feel like it wasn't a great ship design other than its weird ability to transit through spaces much smaller than itself. But there were Peregrines. Yes. I think there was an Ent-era Klingon vessel. It's a weird Romulan vessel I'd never seen before. Like there was what looked like Klingon vessels that had been cut in half. Just weird, man.
Strange. Definitely a cool little Easter egg there for sure.
But of course they're all crap because they're not Andorian.
Well, there was an Andorian with lines in this episode. Were you excited about that?
You know what? I don't like Andorians getting put down by jumped up wannabe command officers.
Damn it, Jen. I think her name is Jen, right? Damn it, Jen. Do your Pilates somewhere else.
Oh my god, she was yoga!
Can't you just do that in your quarters or like in the hallway or something? Come on.
Oh my god! But she wasn't doing yoga. She was there to find Mariner, wasn't she?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. She was telling the Mariner to report to.
I love the fact
office.
though is that she's all like being like all frowny on Mariner for her workout being planning prison breakouts on the holodeck.
Yeah.
And so like, you know what? How are you gonna bag on somebody for their workout being some hardcore training exercise, and yours is I contort my body into weird shapes.
I'll tell you what, though, when Mariner started doing squats in front of the con console, I lost my mind. That was like could be the top moment of the episode.
Oh man! But yeah, great cold open was just fantastic. It definitely like led into the episode really well.
Yeah. And
it's interesting. I do want to comment on that. And as far as like the writing goes, that scene for the episode does a fantastic job of being very entertaining and delivering tons of exposition. It lays out the changed relationship between Mariner and her mother, how she feels about it, how long it's been since the last season. Just so well done.
Yeah. And I know I want to talk more about Mariner and her relationship with her mom later, but you're totally right that it shows that it isn't working, which is an obvious setup for the what's going on later in the episode. But what I really want to talk about is the change in the opening credits. Did you spot the change there?
Which ones? There's the updated Cerritos, which I think we are of a difference of opinion on. I'm of the opinion that it's all just style and upgrade to visuals.
Yes.
There's no actual canon upgrade there. But yeah, the updated Cerritos, it looks fantastic. Way more detailed, way more streamlined lines. It looks a lot better overall.
Yes, that's true. But the shot I'm thinking of is the Borg shot where the Cerritos turns around and runs away. There's a lot more detail in that scene, though. Did you notice that's there's some pack-led battle harpies in there, and some Klingon birds of prey just come in and strafe? I mean, I was kind of worried. We're talking a lot about a 2-second shot in a opening credits sequence, but I was a little worried that there's so much happening it kind of ruins the joke a little bit. But you know what? I think it's still fine.
I hope that becomes a running gag. Every season, just keep making that scene bigger and bigger. It'd be fantastic.
For sure. But, going to the rest of the episode, though, I thought you would be really happy after this one because I feel like it's basically a Ransom episode. And we, of course, all know that Ransom is your favorite character.
You know what? I really do like it. But the problem is I like Ransom as a character, so I'm probably reading too much into it. I feel like the episode just gives his character a lot of depth and complexity.
Yes.
And that's probably not intended by the writers.
They want Ransom to be as uncomplex as possible.
Yes, he comes off a bit too narcissistic, too, which I always felt was more like a veneer in the previous season. Because there's tons of great moments where Ransom shows why he's a great Starfleet officer. Yeah. But then in this episode, it's all like, oh no, all of him being a great Starfleet officer is just a veneer. Underneath, he's this vainglorious asshole who just wants to be captain.
You know what? I think I'm going to have to say that it's part of his godhood, his strange energy exposure, that created this need for his ego to be sated. I don't think it was part of his character.
Godhood brought out the worst traits in him?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm trying to remember back to the last episode where we had somebody who gained godhood. Actually, there's been several. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first episode.
Gary Mitchell? The one
Gary Mitchell.
Yes.
And I'm kind of wondering, because that was the big thing, is he became pretty much a jerkwad after he gained supreme omnipotent powers. But I don't recall the episode well enough. I mean, wasn't he kind of a jerk to Kirk in the past, despite them being friends?
I feel like yes, but again, it's magnifying this personality trait that was already there. So I think it's the same thing with Ransom, where he's not a narcissistic jerk that wants to be captain. He just got amplified by his godhood. Not everyone can be Riker to turn down the powers once you.
Well, I mean, I think that was the whole story of the Quiker episode, was
yes.
that once he became Quiker, he realized that his worst traits were being amplified by the powers of Q, and Picard gave him the verbal smackdown to remind him of who he really is.
Yes.
And he was able to reject them. But you know who doesn't have a Riker, or who doesn't have a Picard in his corner?
Who would that be? That
would be Ransom. He's stuck with Mariner and her mom.
Captain Freeman. Yeah.
Yes.
Not quite the backup you want.
Freeman is such a bad captain.
Speaking of, I want to talk more about Captain Freeman and her relationship with Mariner in this episode. Although I do want to quickly mention, they do name drop Mariner's dad, who is Admiral Freeman. So we've got Captain Freeman and Admiral Freeman and Beckett Mariner. So what's your hypothesis? Why does Mariner have the different last name? Did she change her name so she purposefully won't be identified with her parents?
That is super, super weird. However, there's a fan theory that I think could come into play here. Okay. And that is that the characters from TNG's, I can't remember the name of the episode, where Wesley Crusher, as a Starfleet cadet, murders a bunch of people.
Yes.
And him and his buddies try to cover it up.
Right. The First Duty, I think, is called, right?
Yes, the First Duty, because the first duty of every Starfleet officer is the truth.
The truth.
The scientific truth, or historical truth, or personal truth. It is the guiding principle upon which Starfleet is based.
Are you trying to imitate the Picard British accent?
Picard lies all the time. All the time. Filthy liar. But anyways, so there's a theory that Nick Locarno is Tom Paris. And this goes back to the original plan for Voyager, and Voyager had the same problem that DS9 had before it. They wanted to bring these characters over from previous series, and they're all like, nah, there's some problem with that. We're just not great producers.
That was the problem?
Well, actually, I think it was more like Nick Locarno didn't test well for a name for audiences, so they just changed it to Tom Paris, but kept the personality traits.
Right. Makes sense.
So there is a theory, a fan theory, that Nick Locarno and Tom Paris are the same person. Ooh. But when Tom Paris went to join Starfleet, he wanted to create his own legacy, be his own man. So he changed his name to Nick Locarno so as not to be associated with the revered Admiral Paris.
Ah, makes sense.
However, he fails miserably. And when he flunks out and goes to prison, to spite his father, he changes his name back to Tom Paris. All right, that last bit is all me. I don't think that's part of the fan theory.
I buy it. So you think something similar is happening with Beckett Mariner here?
Well, I mean, either that or maybe she just, it's her mother's maiden name or something.
Ah, maybe that could be. Yes, that could be.
Which I do want to comment. It weirds me out in the distant future that women are still taking men's names. I get that, sometimes when you get into a relationship, you want to create a whole new life together.
Right.
But taking somebody else's name is kind of, super weird.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And, when I got married, my wife and I kept our separate names. But then it becomes an issue when you talk about the kid's name. Because, we hyphenated our kid's name, but then that isn't exactly the best solution either. We need Star Trek to come up with a better solution for this. Maybe we need to do name merging or something like that in Star Trek.
Or maybe just last names stop being relevant. Maybe you just get one name because, it's in an age of computers, and in the computer everybody has a unique ID. So maybe we're no longer Aaron and Stavros. Maybe you're Stavros E67 J Delta 75892.
Oh no!
And I am Aaron 4.
Yes, it seems like there would be way fewer Stavroses than Aarons, or vice versa.
No, it's not that there's a lot of Stavroses. It's just that I'm the most important Aaron.
So, it's ranked by importance. I didn't realize that.
Yes, yes. That's how it works.
Oh dear. But Mike McMahon, if you're listening, you have a perfect opportunity to address this with Beckett Mariner. Please help us with this.
And it's entirely possible that Freeman is neither of their names, and it's their married name. They chose to create a new family name.
It's entirely explainable. Just all it takes is one little line of dialogue. Just make it happen.
Or, nothing at all because it's not really relevant.
How dare you? But I want to go back to Captain Freeman and Admiral Freeman and Beckett Mariner relationship. So, by the way, Admiral Freeman, played by Fulham Marr, is back. He's great as usual. He has that short scene, which is pretty good.
Well, I think the captain really carries that scene.
Well, yes.
Just had some hot chili.
Just interrupted me in the middle of lunch.
I love the fact that like there's no hint that he realizes she's full.
Yeah, he just buys it.
No, he's got to be aware. He's an admiral.
He's dealt with a lot of captains bullshitting him, obviously. But yeah, so I mean, in this episode, at the end, the relationship between Mariner and Captain Freeman is reset back to season 1, and we talked about in the when we talked about some of the trailers and stuff, like the Mariner character is built around this rebelliousness, and of course it's reinstated in this first episode. I wasn't really sure how they were going to have Mariner be Mariner if they didn't have this happen right off the bat. It was obviously a necessity for it to happen.
You know what? I don't think it was a necessity, but one of the things I've heard about Star Trek right now is that a problem with the fan base is that it's very fractured. We all like different things about Star Trek. Star Trek has such a huge breadth of content and context. We all talk about what our favorite episodes, series, seasons, movies are.
Right.
And nobody agrees, right? Because different things speak to different people. And I think they're trying to create different series that are going to speak to a specific audience rather than creating this bland pudding of a series that just it's for everybody.
Right.
And I think that kind of plays through in this, in that there has to be a return to the status quo at some point.
Sure.
Because this isn't their big overarching melodrama series.
Right.
This is their fun animated series.
Right.
And that can work with overarching stories. That can work with, long form television. But there has to be a certain level of continuity, a certain level of status quo.
Right. I totally buy that. But I was worried. Like, what were they going to do? But obviously they reset it and everything's fine. And I just wonder how long Mariner is going to be in the brig for. But I couldn't decide who is more in the right. Did Mariner deserve to be in the brig at the end there? Because she does disarm or disjunk Ransom right at the end.
Disjunk.
But and Captain Freeman obviously didn't have a handle on the situation. So I mean, Mariner was disobeying orders, I guess, but she still saved the day in her usual chaotic good fashion. But I don't know if she deserved to be in the brig or how long she's going to be in there.
Well, I mean, this calls back to the basics of leadership, that you always have to take ownership of your own decisions.
Right.
And you always have to take ownership of your subordinates' decisions. And a big element of leadership is how do you prevent your subordinates from making bad decisions?
Right.
And the first thing you do is you don't let your subordinates run wild. And this whole episode, her inappropriate relationship with her daughter, her complete disregard for her first officer, who has shown himself to be a capable and competent officer.
Yeah, completely.
Despite his bombastic and over-the-top attitude and his maybe... Oh dear, I just lost where I was going. Subtle narcissism.
Right.
That is really 100% on Captain Freeman.
Right.
And so I actually think maybe she should have been in the brig as well. Not that Beckett's attitudes didn't deserve her a little bit of brig time. But I do want to talk about this change that I noticed.
Okay.
So she went off the rails a lot in previous seasons. And there's two ways she goes off the rails.
Okay.
The first is she is fighting for what she believes a moral necessity. She's helping farmers,
Right.
But she also goes off the rails on achieving an end goal that she believes hers is the best path.
Right.
And it happens all throughout the season. Even the season where she's drinking it up with the Klingon ambassador.
Right.
She's 100% ingratiating Starfleet to that ambassador.
Yeah, certainly.
But her mission this season was to power wash some buildings? What's the net gain here, right? What is she trying to achieve?
Yeah.
It seems like she's just being silly and ridiculous.
Hard to make an argument for why. I mean, her reason she gives is the city is dirty because of the Industrial Revolution not being cleaned up after, and she wants to inspire them to clean their city. But that's like kind of far-fetched. I mean, it's obviously a setup for the plot device of the sparkles, the sparkle powers for Commander Ransom.
Although I do kind of wonder how an industrial era society built a god-making machine. Seems a little out of their tech range.
Well, you know what? Their star has strange energies in it that was amplified by the magnifying glass or whatever. You don't know.
Strange energies!
Not that far-fetched. Come on.
Star Trek is known for having a very grounded and never far-fetched storyline.
That's exactly right. But you know what else I want to talk about is my favorite relationship in the whole show, Tenderford. And that was put under some strain, obviously. But you know what? I was made a little bit uncomfortable because Tendi had some jealous tendencies in this episode. And you know what? You do not want that in what is hopefully going to become a future romantic relationship. So I was a little uncomfortable. Tendi goes off the deep end for sure.
I don't know why people can't just be friends, man.
You know what? They can, but I have hopes. I have dreams.
I don't think it was jealousy, though.
Oh, you don't think so?
I really think it's less jealousy and more fear.
Fear.
Tendi was not jealous of the girl he had seen in the previous scene.
Yeah.
She was upset that he was doing things that previously he would never have done.
Right.
His personality was changing, and she was afraid that his new personality would cut her out, and she would never have that friend she had lost.
Yeah.
And she thought if this was the product of some scientific mumbo-jumbo, she could fix it with scientific mumbo-jumbo.
Yep. And I totally agree, but the fact that Rutherford was dating someone else and that was part of what made her suspicious kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't want to believe it. And maybe, like you said, it's because he was acting differently and it's not because she was jealous. I hope that's true because I have high hopes for Tenderford to return later in the season, if not.
I would agree if it was a character we had never seen before or if it was, Billups, who is his soulmate. I would agree with that, but the fact that it was somebody who previously, he was all like, this person's, I thought things were going to work out, but they aren't. This person's not right for me.
Right.
And now suddenly he's all like, oh, she's great. We're perfect together. I can see a different angle on that.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. But you know what I've seen 3D models of floating around the internet already is the medical gun that Tendi wields, which now is canon.
Such a ridiculous concept.
And the funny part is she opens up this case and assembles it. So this must have a canon purpose. What that is, I can't imagine. I guess you can't throw hyposprays at everything.
I love the fact that the best part, it looks like just a collection of medical equipment, and then she assembles it into this assault rifle.
Very very confusing.
Yes.
I like when she pumps it and it pops out the tubes of medication or whatever. Oh my god! But now it exists. I don't know. Did you have any other highlights of the episode that you want to call out?
So real quick, we already hit the medical gun.
Yes.
But brace for grabbing. Such a great line.
That and the captain. There's a head approaching us. It's a giant head approaching. Just
show me what you got.
These lines are delivered by this no-name character on the bridge who I hope in the true Lower Decks fashion eventually gets an episode about them because that was amazing delivery.
Yes. My second one is Symbiont. Is that how it's pronounced?
I heard that too.
Can't let it go.
Yeah, it was a little weird when she says that to Rutherford in the mess. Symbiont, but it's symbiont.
Well, I mean, maybe we're wrong. I mean, neither of us are Englishitarians. Is that what you call them?
I guess.
So, don't know how it's pronounced, don't really care. Ooh, Ransom gets a sidekick.
Yes! That was perhaps one of the best parts of this show. And
the question is he going to come back, or is this a one-off?
And also the fact that he's the only character with a kind of southerny accent. I'm not sure if that makes his character better or worse, but it definitely exists that way.
little of both, I bet.
Yes, I hope so. I hope he nurses Ransom back to health, and they have a happy life together. Because Ransom originally, before he got god powers, wasn't a huge fan, but now he's getting read to every day, and maybe they'll live happily ever after.
I don't know. I feel like that's more of a creepy sub situation, and not really something you want to find yourself in. I'm still shipping Ransom and Mariner.
Ransom and Mariner. It could happen.
Yeah,
it could happen.
Ransom is all that Starfleet is, and Mariner is all that Starfleet could be. Maybe together they can find a happy medium.
Yes. Or I mean, this episode is obviously the love triangle with Captain Freeman in there too. Like, who can get the affection the most? I'm not sure where this line of thought is going. Maybe we should just cut that off at the pass.
Yeah, maybe we should move on.
I think so.
So, of course, I guess before we end this whole conversation, we got to talk about one scene.
Yes, which one?
You know the one. The return of Riker.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. We get a little tease of what Boimler's been up to on the Titan.
Yeah, and it's basically straight out of the trailers. This whole episode has been the bulk of the content from the trailers, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I do want to comment on one thing. His proclamation that this jam session has got too many comps and not enough licks.
Yes.
In context, I still have no idea what he's trying to say.
Do you know? I think those are legitimate.
No, they are. They are.
Terms.
Comps are basically beat music where you're keeping rhythm, right?
Okay.
Whereas licks are independent, small components of music that are just standard, right?
Okay.
That it's a part of what you learn when you are getting into the music scene. It's not just a jazz thing.
Right.
But then you put that all together, and it's all like, I don't know what he's trying to say. Usually, like, it's a lot of, like, jam session, like, focus, I think.
Right. Okay.
But it's all like, so it's got too many comps, so it's like just got too much rhythm and not enough standard musical bits? I don't know what he's trying to say. I'm lost.
Maybe we need someone who knows a little bit more about jazz. Maybe we're missing some kind of context or something, or some kind of slang.
It's gotta be.
So,
you know what? Maybe I'll go to a jazz club and play the clip for somebody. See if he understands.
Yes. Perhaps if any listeners out there know, you can tweet us or comment on the episode, because we have no idea. He's just spouting random jazz words.
Yes,
but it's
all
cool
five
because it's
of
Riker.
you that listen to our podcast. And, let us know if you know anything. Mom, if you can ask Dad. I think he might know.
Yes. You know what? I think we've talked the heck out of this episode. Do you have anything else you want to cover?
I think we've been talking longer than the episode ran.
I think you're right.
You know what? And I've actually ran out
of your White Russian
15 minutes ago. It's
dear.
It's getting a bit long for me.
Oh.
So, I guess it's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. That time that we called it a night. As always, I am Aaron, and signing off with me is Stavros. You can catch us again next week for our review of Episode 2. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter, @LordDorks. Or, if you're feeling a little bit feistier, you can pick up your trombone and go wailing in the night until Stavros leans out his window and tells you to cut that record out.
Or we'll all invite you inside and we can talk about licks or whatever those words are.